The ancient crown that chose a slave over a king. Opening. Long ago, in the ancient kingdom of Edo, where red earth roads led to tall palm trees and the Oba's palace stood like a golden flame against the sun, there was a crown unlike any other. It was called Iviolican, the crown of the sea god. This crown was not made by human hands. The people believed that Olican, the god of the sea and wealth, sent it from the ocean's depths. Whoever the crown chose would rule with wisdom, prosperity, and peace. But there was one condition: the crown only rested on the head of one whose heart was pure. The proud king. At that time, Edo was ruled by Oba Ohenwan, a man of great power but even greater pride. His palace was filled with ivory carvings, coral beads, and servants who bowed at the clap of his hands. He believed he alone was destined to wear Iviolican, for he was king by blood. But the people whispered that the king had grown arrogant. He taxed the poor heavily, punished slaves without mercy, and cared more for feasts than for justice. The elders, troubled by his pride, decided it was time to test him. The Festival of the Crown. Once every generation, the crown was brought out during the Festival of Renewal. The Oba, chiefs, and chosen men of the kingdom would gather in the sacred grove. There, the crown would be placed on a stool carved with leopards and elephants. It would then rise, by its own unseen power, and choose the head it wished to rest upon. That year, the festival was grander than ever. Drums thundered across the city, maidens danced in white cloth, and the smell of roasted yam filled the air. Oba Ohenwan arrived in coral beads and leopard skin, his voice booming. Today the gods will confirm what we already know, that the crown belongs only to a king by right of blood. But the elders exchanged uneasy glances. The slave named Oji. In the market square of Benin lived a young slave named Oji. He had been captured in war as a child, serving in the palace for many years. Unlike the king, Oji was humble, kind, and hard-working. He shared his food with other servants and often helped the weak even when no one watched. Unknown to him, the gods had seen every good deed. On the day of the festival, slaves were forbidden to approach the sacred grove. But Oji, carrying a pot of water for his master, stumbled upon the gathering. The crown's choice. When the drums stopped, silence fell. The high priest lifted the crown and placed it upon the stool. It shimmered as though light danced upon it, then, before the eyes of the crowd, it rose into the air. The people gasped. First, it hovered over the king's head. Oba Ohenwan smiled proudly and stretched out his arms. But when the crown touched him, it burned his skin like fire. With a cry, he fell to the ground, trembling. The crown rose again, glowing brighter. It passed over the chiefs, the warriors, even the wealthy traders. None could hold it. Then, slowly, it drifted toward the edge of the crowd toward Oji, the slave boy carrying water. The people held their breath. The crown descended gently and rested upon Oji's head. Instead of fire, it shone like the sun, fitting him perfectly. The crowd erupted. The gods have chosen. The crown has spoken. The king's anger. Oba Ohenwan leapt up in rage. This is an abomination. A slave cannot rule Edo. Take the crown from him. But the elders shook their heads. The crown does not lie, Oba. Olican himself has spoken through it. The people began to bow before Oji, chanting his name. Soldiers who tried to seize him were thrown back by an unseen force, the power of the crown itself. Oji the reluctant ruler. Oji trembled and knelt. I am only a slave. I have no right to rule. But the high priest placed a hand on his shoulder. The gods do not see chains. They see the heart. You are chosen because of your kindness, your humility, and your service. From that day, Oji was freed from slavery and crowned as the new Oba. The reign of the slave king. As king, Oji ruled with compassion. He lowered taxes for the poor, freed unjustly held slaves, and built wells so no one in the city would thirst. His reign brought peace and prosperity. The people called him Oba Oji the Just. Meanwhile, Oba Ohenwan, stripped of power, was exiled. He lived the rest of his life wandering, learning the humility he had once despised. Closing. And so the story of the crown spread across Edo and beyond. The crown rests not on the head of power, but on the head of purity. The people learned that titles and wealth mean nothing if the heart is filled with pride. True leadership comes from service, humility, and compassion. Moral lesson. A king is not chosen by blood alone but by the goodness of his heart. Power without humility destroys, but humility lifts even the lowliest to greatness.